ولی میشه گرفت خیلی راحت.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحیم. All praises are Allah's, Lord of the worlds, and may His peace and blessings be upon our Master, the Holy Prophet Muhammad, and His pure, immaculate Ahlul Bayt. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. So, this is continuing from the lesson on Tawheed, that lecture I gave on Tawheed, which was I just made a few references on the concept of the essence of Allah. Here, inshallah, we'll enter the discussion on Allah's attributes. In one of the verses of the Holy Quran, it reads, Kullu yawmin huwa fi sha'n. Concerning every yawm, He is at work. If you want to paraphrase it, because yawm, as I've spoken about before, essentially means manifestation. Even the television can be regarded as a yawm. It's a medium through which things are manifested. Here, but we usually refer to yawm as being as being day, because during the day, things become disclosed. But here we shouldn't regard this yawm only as the 24-hour day period. So here it can be paraphrased as, concerning every manifestation, He who huwa fi sha'n is in dimension, is at work, or even is manifesting from moment to moment. This verse we have to explore a bit. Okay. Now, Allah has attributes and names. I think it's worthy first just to briefly distinguish and differentiate between the two. What is an attribute and what is a name? Well, the attribute is usually the infinitive or the gerund, like knowledge or knowing, or patience or being patient, dignity, sustenance. These are infinitives. These are gerunds. In Arabic, masdar, like sustaining, dignifying. It's not speaking in relation to any person or thing, it's the act itself. It's not attributed to any person or time. And that's what the attribute is referring to. Whereas with the name of Allah, it's one who knows. The attribute was knowledge. The name of Allah is one who knows. The attribute was generosity, one who is generous. The attribute was sustenance, one who sustains or provides sustenance. So, with a given essence, when it's annexed to an attribute, the result is a name. So essence plus attribute equals name. In relation to Allah, this has to be rephrased slightly. We'll come onto that. But I just wanted to highlight the difference between attribute and name. So what are the names? Asma'ullah. Well, when we first encounter the term Asma'ullah, the first thing that comes to mind with names is the written or spoken forms of the names. That's the first thing that comes to mind. It's like with the Quran. When someone says the Quran, the first thing that comes to mind is the written form, is the book. But this written form, this spoken form of names, Allah's names, or the Quran, is only a worldly manifestation. It's a very, very lowly manifestation of what a name, of what the Qur'an is. The Qur'an, or names of Allah, they have infinite number of manifestations which are much more higher than merely the written or spoken form. So each spoken or written form of something has different manifestations depending on the realm of existence. We have a worldly form of existence, barzakhi realm of existence, the realm of the intellect, the realm of Allah. These are a very broad classification of realms of existence. Although existence is one, but in that one there are many manifestations to existence. This world is one realm of existence. The Quranic script is the Quran has a worldly manifestation which is the script. The Quran has a barzakhi manifestation, which is in our lectures on Laylatul Qadr, revelation, what revelation is. There we spoke about what the barzakhi manifestation of the Quran is. Then the Quran has a manifestation in the realm of intellect, which is purely immaterial, whereas barzakhi was semi-immaterial. This is in relation to the unveiling of immaterial data. And in the realm of Allah, the Quran is called Ummul Kitab, the mother of the book, the essence of the book. Whereas the worldly manifestation of the Quran is divisible, is material, that's the book that we usually encounter. But Quran in the realm of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is an indivisible reality, purely immaterial. Whilst the Quran in the worldly manifestation is something that the physical eye can see, the physical ear can hear, in the barzakhi manifestation the physical eye can't see it, the physical ear can't hear it, but the inner eye, the inner ear can. This Kitab is revealed onto the heart of the Prophet. He acquired such a status. It's in the realm of the heart, not the physical ears or eyes and so on and so forth. The names too, like what we said in relation to the Quran, has different manifestations depending on the realm of existence. This written name that we encounter is one form, it's in this world. But names have higher forms of existences. And we have to see what Asma'ullah are, not the verbal form, the spoken or written form. We want to see higher manifestations of what Asma'ullah are, inshallah, in the next few lectures. Even book, the concept of book. We have a book in this world, there's a barzakhi book, there's a book in the higher realms. Or the balance, mizan. You see, all concepts that we only see the material side to have higher forms of existences that we are oblivious to. Haji Sabzavari, in one of his letters in response to someone, many of his letters are compiled in a book called Rasail, not the Rasail that they teach in the seminaries in relation, which it concerns the subject of Usul al-Fiqh, and Sheikh Murtaza Ansar is the author of that. This Rasail of Haji Sabzawari are a compilation of his letters, and there he speaks about seeing Allah. Now seeing, we think maybe we usually confine it to seeing in this world, but that the seeing we do in this world is with the physical eye. There's a seeing in barzakh, there's a seeing in the realm of intellect, there's a seeing in the realm of Allah. Then he speaks about hearing Allah, and then it gets incredible. And that's also hearing Allah, that's involved in the process of revelation. But then he even speaks about, and he supports it with traditions, he speaks about tasting Allah. Naturally not with the tongue. What kind of taste is this? Taste is this? What kind of is it? He speaks about traditions which refer to this important point. Then he speaks about touching Allah. It can't be the physical touch. It's a touch which is specific to higher realms of existences. Otherwise Allah can't be touched physically. Allah can't be tasted physically, seen physically. And then at the end he speaks about touching Allah, yes. What remains? Seeing, hearing, smelling Allah. He even speaks about it, and he brings prophetic traditions for each one of them. So the point that I'm starting off with is just to appreciate that when we encounter a term, especially in religion, not to just confine it to the material realm. If you do that, and then just confine that term to the literal dimension, you're becoming oblivious to realities of higher dimensions, and that will result to a poorer understanding of religion, or a more limited understanding of religion. In relation to ism, name, or asma'ullah, we have traditions that the Imam say, Nahnu asma'ullah, we are the names of Allah. Or another tradition, Nahnu kitabullah, we are Allah's book. Nahnu mawazinul qist, we are the balances of justice. So you see, balance, book, name, all these have higher dimensions that we have to consider in our wayfaring. Okay, now coming back to the discussion. When we say Allah's names, Asma'ullah, we mentally, first of all, we first think of the actual expression, Ar-Rahman, for example. We just consider the term, the letters, the written form, the spoken form. But that's only the written form. That's only the material manifestation of it. That's not the whole story. It can't be the whole story. And that's not what is intended by Asma'ullah, i.e. the written form of it. The written expressions, the verbal expressions of the names aren't the real thing. It's a conduit to the real thing. So in the verse of the Quran, وَعَلَّمَ آدَمَ الْأَسْمَاءَ كُلَّهَا, and he taught Adam all the names. Here, it can't be the written or the verbal names, because if it was just a matter of the verbal names, then Adam alayhi salam would be able just to convey it to anyone, and they would also have been taught the names. But this is something much more deeper. It can't be that much. Can't be that easy. It has to be much more deeper. Otherwise, this is something which the angels can't acquire. If it was just a matter of learning a set of written forms or verbal forms, the angels, they didn't have to worry about it. They would have just learnt it from Adam, and then they would have been taught the names. But it can't be that. Why didn't they have the capacity? Why didn't they have the capacity to acquire the names? So these names can't be just mere expressions or written forms. And actually these names aren't Asma'ullah. Ism means name. Asma is the plural. We have something which is the real names of Allah. These written forms are Ismul Ism, are names of the names. These are names given for the real names. These are names, terms assigned for those real names, for those real Asma'ullah. Ar-Rahman is Ismul Ism. And actually you can even think, Ayatollah Jawadi in his tafsir, Tasneem, he even speaks of actually these words like Ar-Rahman are Ismul Is, names of the names of the names. So what is Ismul Is? They are the mental concepts of those names. And then Is the real thing. Now what is the real thing? We haven't come to that yet. But the mental concept of the real names is Ismul Is. It's a conduit to the real names. It's a name for the real name. And then the verbal name, the written name, is Ismul Is. Although I've only seen Ayatul Jawadi say that. Usually they say these terms like Ar-Rahman are Ismul Is, names of the names. But we want to know what, and we want to learn Asma'ullah. We didn't want to confine ourselves to the realm of Ismul Is or Ismul Is. We want the real thing. These written forms are just a shadow of the real names. It's a conduit to them, it's a manifestation of them, but a very low one. True, these Ismul Asma, the names of the names, like Ar-Rahman, Ar-Rahim, As-Salam, Al-Quddus, and all these things, they have effects, and these effects are real. They have effects on the soul. Asma'ullah also has effects upon the soul. Okay? So does the written form, so does the real thing, the real names. But the effects that they have are incomparable. You can't compare the two. Because one is a shadow to the other. One is merely a conduit to the other. Yes, Ismul Is, like Ar-Rahman, the written form of it, for example, the spoken form of it, has effects. Ya Rahman, Ya Rahim, these things, if done under the right conditions, and in some traditions the Imams say recite this name this many times, it's like a prescription a doctor gives. If you do it under the right conditions, the exact number which the Imam has specified, yes, it leads to a kind of luminosity within the soul, especially if it's done from the heart. It has an effect upon one, especially if it's done with the presence of the heart. Because presence of the heart, huzur, is the criterion to ibadah. So here, it has an effect, there's no doubt about it, but still it's a shadow of the real thing. And it's not of concern. It's relevant, but it's not of concern in our discussions here. And the only reason which I've just mentioned a few words on Ismul Is, like Ar-Rahman and so on, is because at the end of the day, these are a conduit to the real thing. It is a means. And there are many books of du'as which speak about the names of Allah. And these books are very useful books that seminary students especially can read, preferably with someone who has a deeper insight into these books. There are many books of du'as which many of the secrets of the Ahlul Bayt are conveyed in these books. Books of du'as are usually esoteric interpretations and tafsirs of the Quran. They're very important, these books of du'as. Ultimately, Sahifa as-Sajjadiyya is the ultimate book of du'a. There's no doubt about that. But preceding that, there are many others. Sheikh Bahawi has a book, Miftahul Falah, the key to salvation. I've seen it's Arabic, but I've seen the Farsi translation to it. Hilli Uddatud Da'i, I think that's even been translated into English, which is a very good book of dua to read. Iqbal ibn Tawus, for example, that's recently been translated too, but not into English, I doubt it. But the ultimate is Sahifa as-Sajjadiyya. But I mean, it may be difficult to start with the Sahifa, but these books of du'as are very important. Anyway, with the Ismullah, Asma'ullah, which is the area that we want to explore a bit, not Ismul Is. Here the effects that it has on the soul are much more prominent now, if you incorporate them. Now, first of all, we still haven't spoken on what is the Ism though, what is the name. It still needs opening up. And then once it's opened up, then what does it mean to incorporate the name of Allah? Because all the names of Allah, and this is a very important point, and Mullah Sadra has a phrase in Asfar where, I'm paraphrasing it, but he speaks about the miraculous nature of the embryo. And it's because within this embryo, all the names can potentially be activated and incorporated within you. But it's all within the embryo. These names that we want to incorporate, ultimately, it exists within the embryo. Well, it's a very deep statement, but it's all the capital that you have within you. And others have used this to, and other traditions from the Ahlul Bayt, which speak of you, the I, being manifested, the I being manifested, the I being disclosed as the Quran. If you want to give a commentary on what the I is, if the I is manifested in the way it should be manifested, the result is the Holy Quran. That's the capacity that one has. Another commentary to the I is the cosmos, whatever is. The cosmos and the Holy Quran, when someone asks, what is the I? You say, well, I may not be able to convey to you what the I is, but if the I is opened up and unfolded as it should be, the results of it is the written commentary, which is the Holy Quran, and the takweeni, providential commentary of the I, which is the cosmos. And you are potentially manifestations of all of Allah's attributes. This is the potential that we have here. Whatever is a manifestation of Allah, but we want to see what it means that you can manifest Allah's attributes. This is what concerns us here. What does it mean that you can manifest and incorporate Allah's attributes? And that will come later, inshallah. Now, with the Quran, and this can be applied to the names of Allah too, when it's in the physical realm, the written realm, if you want to gain access to them and touch them, you need only, as a prerequisite, the physical wudu. You have to do wudu before you can touch the, if you like, small s. Or, if you like, according to Ayatollah Jawadi, the small s. You have to just touch it with the after doing the wudu. In relation to the mental concept of names, you need the wudu of the mind to understand what these names are. But if you want the ism, that's what we're talking about here, the names of Allah, the real things, not the mental concepts, not the written form, all be they conduits to the real thing. If you want there, you need the purity of the heart. That has to be purified. This applies to the Quran, it also applies to the names of Allah. There's no difference between them. The Quran is a manifestation of all of Allah's names, in the same way that the cosmos is a manifestation of all of Allah's names. In the Quran, it's all Allah's attributes in play. In the cosmos, it's all Allah's attributes in play. But if you want access to the names, here the physical wudu or the wudu of the mind will not suffice anymore. Here the heart has to be purified. We have traditions where the heart is Allah's residence. And that very important traditions, but we'll speak of that later. But in chapter 56, verse 80, لا يمسه إلا المطهرون. only those who have become purified, the mutahharun, not mutahhirun, those who have become purified, those who have become mukhlas, not mukhlis, those who have become mukhlas, those who have become purified, only they can touch the real names, the real Quran. They can acquire access to that. And when the verse says وَعَلَّمَ آدَمَ الْأَسْمَاءَ كُلَّهَا, because Adam was mutahhar, and therefore as a result he was given the names. That's the criterion to incorporate the names. So one must ascend spiritually. One has to grow existentially. The heart has to be purified. On pure ascension, one reality becomes disclosed to you. If one truly becomes mukhlas, or almost mukhlas, one reality becomes disclosed. And that's the reality of kullu yawmin huwa fi shan. Every day, but more precise, every manifestation, he is at work. From moment to moment, manifestation to manifestation that happens, from moment to moment, it's all Allah in play. It's all Allah manifesting Himself. هو الأول والآخر والظاهر والباطن. He's the first, the last, the outer, the inner. Nothing is separated from Allah independently. Everything is dependent on Him. Nothing is outside Allah's infinite jurisdiction of manifestations. His manifestations have no end. And the verse which speaks, although I don't know it off by heart, لو كان البحر مدادا, if the ocean was ink, then continues says that the ocean would run out before the names of Allah run out. Even if you were to replace the ocean with water again, Allah's names never run out. They can't run out because He's the beginning, He's the first, He is the last. There is no end, there is no beginning to Him. He's the inner, He's the outer. He's always manifesting. Kullu yawmin huwa fi shan. It's always manifesting. It's all Him at work. It's all Him manifesting, that who. And then since everything is emanating from the who, His essence, and His manifestations in play from moment to moment, from pre-eternity to post-eternity, all things are linked together. Whatever is linked to whatever is. Because it's all through who. Okay, everything is linked together. And if one sees this reality, this leads to states of, and we have it in traditions, and especially we see it in the works of the poets, they speak of ecstasy, intoxication, love, and so on and so forth, is when they see this link of everything together through Him. Now this who, this unseen essence of Allah, is one reality. Now we're approaching the subject now slowly. The names are the dimensions, aspects, and manifestations of who, Him. Who is an inner esoteric name of Allah, the exoteric of which is Allah, but who is the esoteric form. The names of Allah are manifestations of the who. Now this has to be understood carefully. If it's misunderstood, wrong conclusions can be arrived at, and that can cause problems. Now we've said that these names have no end, from pre-eternity to post-eternity, huwa fi shan. It's at work. And these, therefore, since the who has no end, its manifestations have no end. The manifestations of the who are called names. Now, this will be explained inshallah before the end of this talk, but let me just give a summary of the protocol for acquiring these names, the practical procedure of acquiring them. First, it's the Sharia, because you have to ascend through the Sharia from the very beginning to the very end. Whatever station you arrive at, the Sharia is inseparable to this ascension. You can never let go. Those who speak of that they've reached a certain station and they don't need to do prayer, they don't need to do salat, psalm, and so on and so forth, they have falsely drowned themselves into only the names of Allah's beauty, His love, compassion, love. They've drowned themselves in the names of Allah's beauty, His Jamali attributes. But Allah has Jamali and Jalali, majestic attributes. He's a punisher, He conquers, He has revenge. All of these have to be explained. People who become drowned in those names without encompassing the majestic side of Allah, they come to these conclusions. Otherwise, if they always had the majestic dimensions of Allah in mind, they would never let go of salat. It's only when they get drowned in that love, which is a pseudo-love, when they become distanced from the majestic names of Allah, they say, we don't need to do salat, we don't need to do psalm. And this is something that we see quite a bit. But the Sharia is the root, it's a first step, but this first step is pivotal and it will always remain with one until the very end. Next, if you succeed here, it paves the way to execute the noble ethical traits. Although if you don't do the Sharia, you can still acquire the noble ethical traits, but it's with the scaffolding of the Sharia that the noble ethical traits will lead to that spirituality that we want ultimately. But even here, when we acquire the noble ethical traits, it's still an academic procedure. It's still that since the traditions have said this is a noble ethical trait, we want to do it. It hasn't become second nature still. It's still something that we're learning to do. And as we do this, we ascend more and more until the extent that the heart becomes purified. If the heart becomes purified, and the key to the steps 1 and 2, the key is muraqabah, and we've spoken about that in some depth before, but the key is muraqabah. Now, ultimately, through the tool of muraqabah, in accomplishing these first 2 steps, one leads to a stage where one sees, not with the physical eye, one sees Allah's mercy. One sees Allah's patience. One sees Allah's all peacefulness, His salam attribute. Salam is one of Allah's attributes. One sees Allah's rahmaniyya, rahimiyya. One sees these through the purification of the heart. When one sees with the heart Allah's mercy or Allah's patience, Allah's salam in play, since one sees it, one becomes it. This is where names, this is the key point here. If you see with the heart, through the heart, X, Y, Z attribute of Allah, you become that attribute. You become Allah's mercy. It's now incorporated within you. Because through the purification of the heart, you've seen the essence of Allah's mercy now. You become patient, divinely patient, not just ethically patient. It's an irfani patience, which results out of your seeing this attribute of Allah in the cosmos. You become all peace. You become merciful. You become the creator. When you become these attributes, you can manifest them. You become a reviver, muhyi, like Prophet Isa alayhi salam. In the story of the birds, the 4 birds and Ibrahim alayhi salam, there he wanted to see, there the Holy Quran wants to teach us how we become muhyi, how we become a reviver. We have to slaughter the birds, and then the birds have esoteric meanings here. You see the truths of these names, it means you've become them now. And how do you see them? It's through purification of the heart. Then you manifest only mercy, patience, depending on what you're seeing. So it's not a mental concept that you want to learn. It's not a written form that you just want to read or hear. It's something which is incorporated with you through ascension and purification of the heart. And then you become them. It's a very straightforward equation. You see with the eyes of the heart, you become. You incorporate Allah's attributes now. You become a manifestation of Allah's Rahmaniyya, Rahimiyya, Quddusiyya, and so on and so forth. You see Allah in all things. You see His names manifesting in all things. You see all things emanating from who? Him. It's all a multiplicity emanating from a unity. And once you see it with the eyes of the heart, you become it. Because in the realm of the heart, in the realm of the intellect, in this immaterial realm, it's not like this material realm. You just have access to that, everything happens all at once. There's no division there, there's no time there, there's no place there. It's just acquiring access to that is important. Now, considering this multiplicity emanating from unity, one has to give an example here. Because we want to see, what is this who? When we say Him, Allah, what is it? And then, what is its relationship, more importantly, with the attributes? When we said that the attributes are manifestations of who, this has to be explained. If you misunderstand this, it's going to cause problems. What is the who, and what is its relationship with the attributes of Allah? Now, to understand this, the example we have to give is in relation to ourselves. What is the I? We say, I eat, I play, I study, I drive. Here, and you can think of hundreds of other examples, here the I is manifesting itself through eating. The I is eating. The I is playing. It's manifesting itself in studying and driving. But what's the I though? Eating, driving, these are all manifestations of the I. Okay, that's fair enough. But we know of its manifestations, yes, but what is the I itself? You say, my spirit, my mind, my mouth, my going one place, my ears. These are all manifestations. These are all multiplicities of the I. All these things are manifestations of the I. And actually, they are a hijab to the I. They're covering the I up. They're disenabling you. They're not allowing you to gain access to the I. It's like a hijab, a barrier. These are all manifestations, multiplicities of the I. But we want to know what the I is. Some people say, well, the I is, look in your passport, it gives your weight, your height, for example, 60 kilograms. They say 1 meter 70, for example. Profession, you're a teacher. You think, you're a thinker, you speak, give lectures. These are all pluralities, multiplicities. These are all manifestations of you. But what are you? This 60 kilograms is a manifestation of the I. This 1.7 meters height is a manifestation of the I. You're being a teacher, you being a thinker, a speaker, these are all attributed to the I. They're not the I itself. They're all attributed to the I. They're all the I manifesting moment to moment by 60 kilograms, 1.7 meters, teacher, moment to moment. The I is manifesting itself with these attributes. The I is the eater, the I is the player, okay. The I is the studier, okay. The I is the driver. The I is the one who's 60 kilograms. The I is all these things manifesting, but the I isn't the eater, period. It's the eater, that's only one aspect of it. It's the eater, it's the hearer too. And that eater and the hearer, it's one reality, it's the I. It's the hearer, the eater, and the driver. But the driver is not different to the eater. It's not different to the hearer. It's all one reality. It's the I. It's manifesting itself in different ways. But the I isn't the eater per se. It's not the eater, period. It's different. The eater is a manifestation of the I. Being a manifestation is different to what the essence of the I is. So for example, you say X person, like you say Farrokh. He's a hearer, he's a seer, he's a taster. He's not only a hearer, no, he's also a taster, for example. That taster is Farrokh. The hearer is Farrokh too. It's not a different Farrokh, it's the same person. But what is this I though? Minus all these multiplicities, all these manifestations that have been attributed to the I. Okay, what is the I when you take all these multiplicities away? And the philosophers or something, whatever may say, well, it's that mere simple unseen essence. But what's that? What is it? Now here, Ayatollah Misbah has a book in philosophy, and it's called Philosophical Instructions, آموزش فلسفه. It was originally written in Farsi, but it's been translated into English by Mohammed Liegenhausen, professor, and Adim Sarf Dalir. And here he gives an experiment. Ibn Sina gives an experiment. This experiment, centuries later, Descartes gave the same experiment, but he got it from Ibn Sina. And here it's how to get closer to the I, get access to the I. So Ayatollah Misbah says Ibn Sina in his Isharat is one of his books, one of Ibn Sina's books, he presents an argument for the immateriality of the soul that may be summarized as follows. If one is placed in an environment in which his attention is not distracted by external things, and the condition of his body is such that he does not notice it, that is, he does not suffer from hunger, thirst, cold, heat, pain, or any other discomfort, and even the weather is completely still, so that the blowing of the wind does not attract his attention. And in the words of Ibn Sina, there is balmy, with an L, weather. In such a situation, if one focuses one's attention on oneself, that is, on the I, the perceiver, so that one has no attention on anything corporal, he will find his soul, kind of dismantling himself. In a very calm environment, one dismantles himself, at least mentally, separates, disassociates himself from the head, from the hands, from the feet, from his cells, everything he disassociates. But there's still an I there. So that one has no attention on anything corporal. He will find his soul, while he will not find any of his bodily organs, because he's disassociated himself from everything. What he finds is different from what he does not find, and hence the soul is other than the material body. Although this has many things we can add on to it, but just the idea of this I how one disassociates from everything. Ibn Sina suggests this experiment helps you to, it proves the immateriality of the soul, because when you disassociate everything from you, there's still an I present. You still acknowledge the I, even though your brain, your legs, everything you've disassociated from. But there's something, one step, what he wants to, Ibn Sina wants to refer to, we'll come to that later inshallah. So when you say Muhammad, so if for example you're in somewhere else and then someone says to me, Muhammad, I said, yes I do. What I recall of Muhammad is his face, Muhammad my friend, or his job. I recall his height, his weight, his eyes, his family. All these things, is all those things that Muhammad manifests of himself. That comes to mind. But minus all these multiplicities, minus all these manifestations, what is Muhammad? Is it the body? Is it the eyes? It can't be any of these, no. The essence of what he is, these are just manifestations of him. What is Muhammad though? All these are different. All these different actions, all these different attributes, they just manifest the I. But all these actions and attributes are different to the I. All these different, like the hearer, the seer, all these things are different to the I. But it's also the same as the I. It's the same as the I in the sense that the hearer is the I. The seer is also the I. All these different names is referring to one reality. In that sense, it's the same. But it's different to the I, in the sense that these are just manifestations. The I is just at play, manifesting. True, all these manifestations are all corresponding to one reality. That's why we say his attributes are his essence. There's not two realities. If you have 100 attributes, they're not 100 realities. No, all of them is pointing to one reality. But don't let that make you think that the essence of these attributes are the essence of the who, of the him. No, it's different. The I is the I, but it always manifests incessantly, moment to moment. And all these manifestations are a hijab to the I. That's what happens usually. Rarely can one pierce through this veil of veils. Becoming attentive towards the I, in the complete sense, is something heavy. This is deep stuff now. It's very difficult. And if you do get access to the I, then the tradition that the Holy Prophet gave, Man arafa nafsa, arafa rabba. One who gets to know one's I gets to know Allah. These manifestations are just a barrier. They're just manifesting the I. But if you get to know the I, you get to know Allah. So what's the problem? What's the problem which doesn't allow us to get to know Allah? The I, It's those manifestations. These have to be eliminated, not destroyed. You can't get rid of the manifestation, your height, weight, and all these things. Not to destroy you as a hearer, seer, taster, studier, driver. No, these are all there. When we say we have to eliminate them, we just have to prevent these things acting as a barrier to us gaining access to what the essence of us is. If you want to know what Muhammad is, his essence. So, the body, the eating, seeing, studying, all these things manifest the I. They're inseparable from the I. The eater is the seer, is the driver, is the studier. It's all pointing to one reality. They're just manifestations of it. So all these attributes are inseparable from the person. The I accompanies all the manifestations. It's not separated from those manifestations. The I is the seer, the I is the hearer, and so on and so forth. But in relation to the person, we're still giving examples of the person here. Like Farrokh, for example. I have an essence, the I of me. When you look at this I of Farrokh, qua seeing, you only look at the seeing dimension of it. Here, the name given to Farrokh is Basir, seer, one who sees. Farrokh is Basir when you look at Farrokh, the I of Farrokh, in the realm of seeing. Is now called Basir. Now this Basir is only a written form. A seer, S-E-E-R, which points to the I in the jurisdiction of seeing. When the I is involved under the boundaries of seeing, we call that I a seer. But that seer has a verbal meaning, a verbal written form, but there's a real seer too. A real seer. Not only the written seer, not only the mental concept of seeing, but it's a real seer. The eye is seeing. When Farrokh, we look at Farrokh under the boundaries and jurisdiction of hearing, we call the same Farrokh, the same eye, which we previously called seer, but now we're looking at him in another light, in the realm of hearing, we now call him Sami'a, hearer. It's the same eye though, but you're looking at it under this jurisdiction. If it's under the jurisdiction of seeing, he's called Basir. If it's under the jurisdiction of hearing, it's called Sami. If it's under the jurisdiction of writing, he's called an author, Katib. So the essence, depending on which jurisdiction of attribute you're looking at it, has a name. But it doesn't mean that Basir is different to Sami. Basir is the eye. Basir is Farrokh. The seer is the same Farrokh that Basir was referring to. But you're looking at it under the manifestations of seeing, under the manifestation, the jurisdiction of hearing, under the manifestation or jurisdiction of writing, driving. So this essence, this Farrokh, the eye of Farrokh, is Basir, is Sami. And the Basir is the Sami, it's one reality, it's Farrokh, the essence. And they're the same as the writer. Farrokh isn't the Basir alone, and then the Sami is something else. No. That which the Basir was referring to, that I, is exactly the same I that Sami is referring to. It's just that Farrokh, under the jurisdiction of seeing, has one name, one attribute, because of that manifestation of seeing of his. Under the manifestation of hearing, another name is given to Farrokh. Now the same applies, sorry for that long example, but the same applies with respect to Allah's attributes and names. All manifestations of Allah's Hu, the real manifestations, not the conceptual or the verbal ones. Allah is provider of sustenance. When you see sustenance in the real world, Allah is a provider. Whatever kind of sustenance you see in the real world, okay, it's Allah being at play, that essence of Allah. When we say therefore He is Raziq, the sustainer, it's because you're seeing that I, the essence of Allah, through the manifestation of this provision of sustenance. So you call Allah, that essence, Raziq. Yes, the Raziq is the Hu, is the essence of Allah. The essence and the attribute is the same. It's referring to one reality, but one's a manifestation of the other. Allah is the granter of knowledge. Whenever you're at school, university, the Holy Prophets receiving revelation, all forms of granting of knowledge, whenever you see it in this real world, Allah is the granter of knowledge. When a student at nursery school is learning, at the university place, any type of learning that you see, Allah, you call Allah in that aspect of Allah, and that jurisdiction of learning and teaching, you call Allah Alim or Alim, the granter of knowledge. Whatever kind of power you see, Allah is granting it. You call Allah Qadir. Whatever kind of life you see, He is granting it all. All these are emanating from His names. And this essence of Allah, the Who, manifests knowledge, manifests wisdom, manifests power. Allah as Alim is the Who, just one manifestation of it. Allah as Hakim is referring to the Who. The Alim is the Hakim. There's no difference. It's one reality they're pointing to. The Alim is exactly the Hakim. There's no difference there. Both referring to the eye of Allah. They're both manifestations of the eye. They're not something separate from the eye. It's not as if Allah, with every attribute, there's one Allah. No. Now, a question may arise here. So if you see the Who manifesting in the mode of Raziqiyya, providing sustenance, and you call Him Raziq, does it mean therefore that in that specific realm there's no Hakim, there's no Alim, there's no Qadir, there's no Basir, there's no Sami? Is He only Raziq, but He's none of the others? Now, this is an important question. The answer is no. Allah has all these names in the Who. With every action, with everything. So why do we call Him Raziq there and not Basir? Because we believe even in the realm when He's providing sustenance, that Raziq is Basir, is Sami at the same time. How do we explain that? Inshallah, for the next lecture we'll touch upon this. Wa sallallahu ala Muhammad wa alihi wa sallam.